Hi, fans of high quality entertainment. I am with the beer and vinyl guy, Alex. And as some of you know, I've been pretty obsessed with this band Ween for the last year or so. This was the very first album of theirs I ever heard. It was my gateway. And then I bought other albums, which I'll get into at some other point. But Alex agreed. I actually forced him, and I paid him $500 for him to listen to this album. And how many times did you listen to it?
I did a full 6 listens.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So we'll see.
And on the sixth listen, you're still saying, "Oh, I hate this so much."
Thank God for that $500.
Okay, so first off, tell me your history with Ween, if there is any history.
Yeah. So this was a band I was completely unfamiliar with outside of really you. Obviously you are a big fan, or they were one of those. Look at that. I've heard you talk about them a ton, and I think you've probably included this album or others in probably some CD exchanges or some recommendations. But I had never actually listened to a single Ween album or song. And I think it was one of those things where I was the things I had heard, I was getting two sides of it. I was getting the side of you that was like, I'm loving this. This is
then you're getting Glenn Kellaway's
side.
And
then I'm getting like the Glenn side of like, this is stupid. We love you, Glenn. But it's like this is stupid. Who names a band Ween? All this kind of stuff. And so I was like, okay, and I will say this is one of the things that led me to want to do this was that based on what I had heard about the band, it was like, they're crazy. Like every song sounds different. It's, how would you describe them in a genre? And you're like, you can't, because it's all different and every album is different. And for me, at least in my music taste, that was something that really interested me, because I'm a huge, it's like the same way. How do you describe Frank Zappa? It's just Zappa. And I think in a lot of ways, how do you describe Ween? It's just Ween, right?
And that could be good or bad, depending on the listener, right? Some listeners just want their AC/DC, right?
Yep.
Like the same kind of sound all the time, and
you're
not going to get it with Ween.
Yep. Absolutely. So, this stuff, I actually really enjoyed these types of assignments, because, it's a band I've heard a lot about, and I was interested to dive in. So
cool. So let's go with the very first time you heard the album, and maybe just quickly go through the song, or some of the songs, and the good and the bad of it.
Yeah. Did you want me to go track by track here?
Yeah, sure. If you like, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first time I heard it, obviously it kicks off with, it's going to be a long night.
And you thought it was Motorhead.
I thought it was Motorhead. I thought this was like a Motorhead. Exactly right. Like that's what everybody.
You're maybe thinking the whole thing was going to be like that, right?
Well, I had a feeling it wouldn't, but I didn't know, because I was so unfamiliar, that this is the one track that's sung by the other
Dean,
the other guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I heard this and I was like, wow, like this is Motorhead. This sounds exactly like Motorhead. And then you go into the completely
the next track is not Motorhead.
The next track is not Motorhead. In fact, I don't know what the next track even is, in terms of how I would compare it.
Yeah.
I took some kind of some very, very short notes, and not necessarily meaning good or bad, but for track 1 I was like, Motorhead, right? Track 2, Zoloft, Goofy. What's funny is that the first time I heard it, and you might be this way, the first time I heard it, the whole record, I wasn't turned off by it. I wasn't offended by it. I didn't know how much I really liked it or loved it, but there was a lot there that I was curious enough in, obviously, to keep it going. And with something like those first 2 tracks, and as we can, for the full 15 tracks, what I really appreciate is, again, just how eclectic these songs are. I mean, it is it truly is all over the place, which I, again, really love that approach. So yeah, Zoloft, it's goofy. It's goofy, not saying goofy good or goofy bad, because I'll kind of get to that later where I'm kind of struggling-ish on where to fall with that. Transdermal Celebration, very kind of, I wrote down just like 90s alternative rock, right? I mean, I could probably see myself or hear myself hearing something like that on, radio or whatever, but good stuff. You go into Among His Tribe, it's this acoustic, almost psyche. Now we're getting into like some of the psyche spacey stuff, which I think plays a lot throughout the rest of the record. Then we go goofy again, which I don't even know, with so many people in the neighborhood. Again, it's like it's just goofy. It's goofy. I mean, I respect and appreciate it. And more on this here, Lloyd. Yeah, more on this here. Goes into Tried and True again. This was wrote down again, another acoustic bit. Very, I get like very just indie rock, indie folky, not folk, but indie rock sort of vibes. I'm curious from your perspective. I mean, the vocals are obviously all over the place.
Yeah.
With stuff like this, I mean, it sounds, obviously with the very, very deep vocal, it sounds slowed down in terms of effect. I'm guessing.
Now they do that on their, like, they speed up, slow down. They mess with the vocals, right?
Yeah.
But from what I've heard from live, he can do some of that live.
Sure. Okay.
Right? It's not all audio effects or anything.
Right. And I will say too, right? Like I when I say like there's an effect on it, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not like it's auto-tune where he can't sing and he has to put it on there.
Yeah.
But definitely it adds to the weirdness factor of it.
Yeah.
We go into Happy Colored Marbles. I write, here are my notes here. Dirgy, slow, kind of goofy, but brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. Then we go into another goofy one. But here's what, so Hey There, Fancy Pants. I wrote down again, goofy. This is like the third or fourth kind of goofy track, but, and maybe this is why Glenn is not a fan. I could see something like this fitting on A Night at the Opera, or some of those Queen, bits where they were doing these sort of
Seaside Rendezvous kind of thing.
Seaside Rendezvous, or Get Back That Leroy Brand, kind of stuff. Great guitar playing on that, though, right? I don't want to have that undermined by kind of the goofiness of the track, but just really great guitar playing. Now we sort of move into like the second half of the album for me.
It gets a little more serious, doesn't it? Most of it.
Perfect point. Yeah, it's exactly what I was sort of thinking here. Now we sort of, we move into the second half where it's like not a whole lot of, we'll get to, one of the tracks here, but, much more serious. With Captain, now we're in slow, spacey, super psyche. I get Pink Floyd vibes here. I mean, I really do get that sort of spacey, atmospheric type stuff. Chocolate Town, now we're kind of back in this sort of indie, alt sort of
almost country pop, right?
Yep. That's exactly what I had. Alt country acoustic ditty.
My girlfriend Molly loves that song, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That could have been a radio hit, right?
Easy. Yeah, absolutely. Of all of these, that easily could have been a radio hit. Yeah. Going to the next track. I Don't Want It. Cool. This is, and maybe I'll get to this here in my sort of summarized, but this is the stuff I really like when they do. I get like Weezer / 90s power pop ballad from this. Just a beautiful song. My one minor criticism, which is just such a small critique, is that the tone of the guitar just sort of like gets on my nerves a little bit when the solo kicks in, but that is like such a small, tiny little thing with it. But I love that. We go into the jam. Don't want to swear on your channel, your beautiful
The
channel.
fuck jam.
Oh, you see, you said it. So I wrote, "It is what it is."
You were waiting for it to end, but it would never end.
But it is right. It would cut off. Yes, I kept looking
I
at
actually think it's like hilarious, right?
Yeah.
Because you never do know when it's going to end the first few times.
Yep. And the cutouts just like last longer and longer and longer. But now here's what I did here, and I don't know if you've gotten into this. It was kind of funny because, of course, I was listening to this on Spotify, because one of my things I will say, Ween albums are notoriously difficult. They're out of print on vinyl.
Yeah.
The ones that are available are, so expensive. But I'll finish up here and then give more of the sort of overall sort of view with it. But the jam, I said, it is what it is. It has its part. I'm not offended by it, that sort of thing. But now they're leaning into the technology and the electronic sort of side of them, right? Again, of a different approach entirely. We go into, I don't know if is it Alcan Road?
Alcan Road, I believe, yeah.
We're back into spacey psyche mode. I mean, now we're in like full atmospheric, borderline ambient type music. I mean, right? This is, again, completely different. And then we get into the penultimate track, the Argus. I wrote down, at least the vibes I get in the beginning are sort of now we're almost getting into Prague, because I noted Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson type bits here and there. A great waltz, you just get the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 all throughout. It's cool, proggy. There's the great kind of proggy guitar break sort of section about halfway through with tons of ear candy, amazing instrumentation. This to me was my favorite track on the album, and I think a lot of that is based on my type of music that I really like. It's the song. There's a great string section around here. I wish the song went longer. I was like, more of this. Like, this was the sweet spot for me. And then the last track, If You Could Save Yourself, You'd Save Us All. It definitely sort of has that end of album sort of vibe to it. Solid song, great song. I loved it, all that type of stuff. So overall, like, I thoroughly enjoyed the record. I mean, we were just talking before about how I would rate it or all these different things. For never hearing this band ever, like, I have, I think, the utmost respect and appreciation for what they do. If I was going to rate this, I'd go a good 7.5, 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
for me. I think for me, what it's going to come down to is finding. So here's my question for you: is I love when albums are all over the place like this one, but then it also, to me, sometimes presents a challenge with sequencing or the full album experience, because I don't know how consistent it feels as an album.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is, like, I listen to this, I know it's not a concept album in the sense of like a character or something like that.
Yeah.
But as the songs flow and there's all these different things moving around, I couldn't help but think to myself, this could have been a full concept album where they would tell us. And I don't know, do they have concept albums where they're telling a story, where things are flowing in and out, all that type of stuff? Because I could see them being really good at that sort of thing. So those are some of my general thoughts on the album.
There are, especially their later albums after this, it's a little more consistent with not as abrupt genre changes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's even their, like, the second album I heard by them is called The Pod, which is their second album.
The earlier one, yeah. Yep.
And so I was expecting, more of this great stuff, because I was so impressed with it. Even on the first listen, I loved it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I played The Pod, it's more, they recorded on 4-track, and it wasn't the band, it was just the two of them. And, I think drugs were involved at some point.
Maybe. Yeah.
But the first time I played it, and it's a long album, I guess it's like a double vinyl maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time I played it, I listened to it all the way through. I hated each and every second. I don't know if you've ever had one of those albums. And then the second time I played it, I actually didn't play it for a couple of weeks maybe, and then I'll try it again. It just connected with me more. I
Yeah.
liked it, and from then on, I was in. And
Yeah.
then I bought the following album, which is kind of the two that are the most similar. Everything else is so different. And once again, I hated it, even
Yeah.
though I was used to the pod.
Yeah.
And I just I mean, if I do hate something, I'm not gonna love it just to say I love it.
Sure.
I love it all. I love everything I've heard by Ween. And the only album I'm missing is 12, what is it, 12 Country Greats or something. And
Okay.
it's actually 10 songs. And they got Nashville musicians to do all the music, and
Yeah.
with these weird lyrics that they would sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's to get to your point like this, I would be interested in checking out some of the other stuff too, just
Yeah.
because I think even if there's something to like on all of these, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
but again,
yeah,
knowing the type of person I am and liking a lot of this kind of stuff, they sort of, just based on what I'm hearing and the fact that actually on Spotify, when the album ended, Spotify plays like the next song that it thinks you would like.
Yeah.
Funny enough, it played a Flaming Lips song. And I'm a big Flaming Lips fan. And then I sort of started thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not saying that Flaming Lips and Ween sound alike, but I think as the thematically as the trajectory of their career goes, a lot of changes. Everything sounds so different.
Yeah.
I mean, Flaming Lips started as kind of like a lo-fi punk noise band.
Yeah.
And then by the time around the same time that Quebec came out, they were doing sort of more, psyche poppy conceptual stuff. And so, that was something that was interesting. But I got to tell you, Larry, I'm curious now. Now I'm curious,
And we were talking about this album, which is part of the CD exchange with Glenn. On one of their albums, Dean Ween, he's called, the main guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
He does an instrumental, and Glenn's actually saw the live footage of it, and he actually was impressed with it. It's called A Tear for Eddie. It's a tribute to Eddie Hazel.
Mm-hmm.
So
very cool.
I love that. That's one of the things I'm impressed with them on many levels. Just being creative, I guess, is the top, right? But Dean Ween, he's one of my favorite guitarists now. He's just, I don't know, just very impressive.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. And I think if nothing else, I mean, they know what they're doing. I mean, incredible musicians, I think incredible artists, really creative. They know what they're doing. And so, I mean, and that's stuff that I can get behind. So,
So you are ready for and we're going to talk about your channel too before we go.
Sure.
So you are ready for another Ween album.
I would be open and ready and willing for another Ween
This
album.
is actually considered by a lot of fans their favorite. Mm-hmm. So it's not a drop. It's not a drop in quality. It might even be more liked or loved. It is the Mollusk by Ween.
Okay.
And there's the songs on it there. Yeah, the first song, I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, and let's see what else is on here. Yeah, there's some, once again, there's some serious stuff on it, but it is more, it's not as all over the place as Quebec. So I think you would like this as much, if not more than Quebec, but we'll see in a week or two.
Yeah. I'm excited. What can you say? Well, I would say too, it is worth mentioning that at least for Quebec, that was their first release back on an independent label.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times it plays a role of them going, you know what, like we are not answering to the man anymore.
Well, even when they were on a big label, right? They put out one of their weirdest albums. Like they don't care, right?
Right. Maybe that's why they got removed from the label,
Yeah. So and one other thing, at some point soon, we will do one of these live chats, pre-recorded, talking about is it your favorite band, Dream Theater?
My favorite band of
I
all
thought you were
time.
going to go,
That's right.
no.
No.
And yeah, and just kind of not quickly, but not too quickly, go through all of their albums and what you think about each one of them and
Yep.
how they developed. And Mike Portnoy leaving the band, I know that was upsetting for you. And
Yep.
and then he returned. And yeah, that'll be exciting. So Alex, and thank you for checking out Ween. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tell us about your channel and what's coming up and everything.
Sure. Well, Alex, beer and vinyl, it's my two favorite things in this world. Although I used to, with every video, I found myself cracking open a beer because that was just part of the theme. And then I was like, Alex, you're recording videos at like 8 a.m. before work or during work. So, maybe stop that. But so I'm not drinking on my channel nearly as much, if at all. But yeah, silly name. And, I'm a big music fan and a record collector. So much of my channel, similar to Larry's or other folks, is just talking about music, showing records. I mean, I'm a vinyl guy, so it's kind of has that added collector component to it of talking about maybe some, rare pressings, those different things. So, yeah, I am not a professional. I'm not like Larry by any means, but try to crank out at least a video a week if I can, and just laid back, have fun, and talk about music and stop judging people. Right, Larry?
That's right. Stop judging me, Glenn Kellaway from the basement.
Glenn.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex. And please check out Alex's channel and subscribe. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.